this up to the cap.
Is this heavy? Heavy? Heavy?
Hey, Adam, don't be alarmed, but I'll walk up.
Claudio, Caprioni, Rich, Rear, and we're here with Paul. I can't say his name. Paul.
Two cicadas, right? We got two.
Yeah.
They're bugging us too.
They're really bugging.
How long has why is the fort in a star shape?
Well, that's a good question. We often get asked because, a lot of people think, well, Star-Spangled Banner, star-shaped fort, but actually the star fort was a very popular design in early American forts because out on the point, and we're standing on one of the 5 points of the star, this is where some cannon would be mounted, and you can imagine yourself being soldiers up here, and this way from these points you could look out at vantage point to see any enemy activity, enemies approaching the fort. So on all 5 points, all the way around, the fort is very nicely protected that way. And then if there is an enemy and they start storming the fort, you have the capability of crossfire from the cannons that would be up here, firing and getting the enemy caught in this crossfire. Okay, good question. Next.
Why did you make the walls with brick?
Mainly because that was the type of material that was easily accessed here in the Baltimore area. They could make the brick, and it was easy for them to do that here in this area, rather than say stone or some other material.
How do you think Francis Scott Key felt when he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner?
Well, I can imagine he was quite concerned because he's on a boat. He's not here at the fort. He's witnessing the battle downriver. And from there, they didn't have any ship-to-shore radio to find out how things were going here. So the anxious moments came when there was no firing being exchanged between the fort and the ships, because then they began to wonder, did the fort fall? Have the British captured Fort McHenry? But, of course, after 25 hours, then Mr. Key and his friend Dr. Beams and Colonel Skinner were released. They sailed up into Baltimore, and of course, what did they see flying up over the fort? The flag, right, and their country's flag. It wasn't a British flag, so they definitely knew that their fellow countrymen had held the fort. The soldiers and sailors here at Fort McHenry had done their job and prevented the British from sailing by and capturing Fort McHenry and sailing up into Baltimore. Okay. Whoa.
When did you begin this job and why?
When did I? Well, I'm known as the old ranger here. Would you believe it? I've been here like 30 plus years. Long time. And why did I come to work at Fort McHenry? Because I enjoy history, number one. I enjoy studying history and learning things about the past. And the other thing is I enjoy people. And of course you've got a combination here of people visiting historical parks, and we have people coming from all around the world and from our own country, of course. And we get about 600,000 to 700,000 visitors a year, like yourselves, come through here to learn the story of our country's national anthem. Some of them come just to fly a kite or maybe walk the dog, as you can see going on down there. A gentleman, they use it as a recreational aspect of the park. but a lot of people come here just to learn the story of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Why did you pick to work at Fort McHenry?
Well, that's another good question. Mainly because I came from Baltimore. Baltimore is my home area. I grew up in the city, and so when I started looking around at a place where I might work, I thought maybe up at Gettysburg or maybe down into Washington. And then I looked at the map again and I said, wow, there's a national park right in my own backyard. And so I came down and asked if they had an opening, and sure enough, and I've been here ever since. Maybe some of you guys would like to work in a national park someday?
Yeah.
We have historical areas. We also have natural areas like Yellowstone and Grand Canyon, and we've got Appleseed Island and Gettysburg. And where are you all from again? Pennsylvania. Okay, now we've got historical Philadelphia, Independence, and a lot of historical parks up there too. So it's a neat job.
How much work does it take to take care of Fort McHenry?
Well, we have a maintenance crew that works at it 8 hours a day. There is, as you can see, there's a lot of grass. The other thing is there's a lot of brick that has to, sometimes it falls down, it has to be replaced or repointed. Anything that when you have an old structure like that, you have the possibility of it wearing out. Finally, you know, you have to replace windows, wood rots out, and so it does take a lot of work and a lot of money to keep the fort together as you see it here today.
How long did it take to build Fort McHenry?
Another good question. They started building this fort back in 1798, and they completed it basically about 1803. So that's, and then since then they've been changing, making, like they added a second story on the buildings. They changed the cannons. These cannons are original out here now to the Civil War, so they brought those in after the battle in 1814. So they've made modifications to the fort down through the years as well. Because you got to keep updating. You have to remember when you visit Fort McHenry, it didn't suddenly become a national park the day after the battle, but it went on to serve as an active military base off and on for over 100 years. So what you see here today is the result of this ongoing history, and there have been some modifications and changes. Good question. Anything else?
Would you recommend this job to a kid like our age?
I sure would, especially if you enjoy history and enjoy the natural history. As I said, we have both, you know, types of parks. It's a great job, and I enjoy coming to work just about every day. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Glad to do it. You go to Boston.
Actually, I don't have my info.
Hello, Mike McCarthy. How are you? My name's Tim Russ, and I work for NBC News. I do a program called Meet the Press. You know, DVE-NEWS TV. I do NBC TV. And what's your name, Thea?
Yeah.
How are you?
Thea's been trying to meet you for her whole life.
You just did. Hi, Thea. Welcome to Meet the Press. Now, let me show a picture of you when you were a little baby girl. I'll put this on the screen. Oh, that's what I do. Oh. Huh? Go ahead, fire away. What's your question?
How do you have so much time with father and your job?
You have to get your priorities right. I get up every morning at 6 o'clock, read all the newspapers, all the magazines. Then my son wakes up, we have breakfast. I used to read in school, and now he's 18, he knows himself. I went to every one of the baseball games, football games. That kid's show you where to park. Okay. What did he say?
Keep going.
You know what they should do next? You know what?
We were just to kind of make sure we got everybody in. Yeah, who's coming in too?
Tell me to just hold it from here
Okay.
until they get all the kids off.
Okay.
How long was I in college? Oh my God, that's a question my mother asked me. It took me more than 4 years to get my 4-year degree. Part of the time is because I went into service in between. But to anyone who goes up to college and things like that, well, I may not be the best role model to do that, but it took me a little longer than 4 years. Okay, again, people who haven't asked questions yet, I know this is difficult.
I just think that maybe some of the kids are asking about Homeland Security because maybe they don't really understand what Homeland Security is. Maybe they can explain it.
Okay.
Maybe then they have more questions from there.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Somebody asked, the other question before is why do we have a Department of Homeland Security? Certainly after 9/11, a lot of people came to the realization that maybe things aren't coordinated well enough. So the idea behind setting up the Department of Homeland Security was, again, to bring in all those departments and agencies that had a piece of the pie in terms of Homeland Security. You had INS over here, getting with immigrants, processing that. You had Customs and Border Patrol over here. You had Coast Guard over here. So the whole idea behind the Department of Homeland Security is let's get all those pieces together and bring them in one organization so that people can better coordinate and work with each other when things happen. FEMA also was over here, all brought in together. So in terms of all hazards, be it terrorism, tornadoes, hurricanes, all of preparedness and response is now in one agency. And the whole idea is to coordinate that better. I don't know if that'll lead more questions, but that's kind of the quick 30-second snapshot as to what we're about. Certainly the Secretary will talk more about that in a much more eloquent way than I. Yeah. Okay, to answer that one, okay, the first question is what is the homeland? The homeland is the United States. This is where we live. So be it United States, all 50 states, all our areas, people, U.S. citizens, people here in the United States, that's the homeland. So homeland security, I guess in a philosophical sense, is making sure that we as individuals and families are safe from hazards, man-made and natural. Yeah, right in the back there. Patient girl in the back. Well, if we had the final decision, we'd say no. Unfortunately, some people might want to still try to do that. We have the final decision. Homeland Security works we have a lot of the assets here within the department. We also work very closely with the Central Intelligence Agency, the Department of Defense, and the Department of State. The Department of Homeland Security has the lead on threat warnings. So if there is a credible threat, the Department of Homeland Security and Secretary Rich takes the lead letting people know, hey, we're elevating the threat. Please be a little bit more careful. The Department of Homeland Security has all these assets here, but we don't want to exclude the assets and the abilities of the Central Intelligence Agency and the Department of Defense. But do we have the final word on terrorism? We prefer not. Again, do we have the final word on hurricanes and tornadoes either? No. Undersecretary Mike Brown works for Secretary Rich. He's in charge of FEMA. So when there's natural disasters out in the Midwest, flooding, tornadoes, and things like that, the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, go out there, they help communities rebuild, they go out and survey damage, they make recommendations to the President to clear So the Department of Homeland Security is ready to respond to all hazards, again, man-made or natural. Yeah. Oh, okay, we're going with the mic right here. Now let's stop.
Did you ever have to travel with President Bush or anything?
Not yet.
Is the representative for Homeland Security in the President's cabinet?
Secretary Ridge is members of the President's cabinet, absolutely. And he meets with the President every day in the morning. No sense of Mike passing by you.
What's your favorite sport?
What's my favorite sport? Football. Mine's golf. That's mine. Yeah, in the back.
How do you alert people when there's going to be like an attack or something?
Well, good question. A little bit of it. How do we look at people when the threat level is raised? Some of you may know we have a 5-tiered alert going from red, John, correct me, red, yellow, red, orange, no, red, orange, yellow, blue and green? Oh, I don't know. The highest is red. We've never gone to red. We were in orange over the holidays. Right now we're in yellow, which is guarded. But yeah, the secretary puts that out. It goes out to news media, and we'll certainly contact reporters like yourselves so you can put it out to your people. Last question?
What exactly do you do for Tom?
I run the Office of Public Liaison. The Department of Public Liaison is basically in place to help communicate to the public in different venues and different groups what the department is doing. And we have public liaison officers who work at different functions, and that's what the Office of Public Liaison does. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming here and being a part of us. We appreciate the chance to reach out to you. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Secretary and former Governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Riggs. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. How's everybody doing? Good. This is the first 3 days today? Yes. Outstanding. Thanks for bringing the nice weather. All right, well, I got to sit here and say, Amber, how you doing? Doing all right? Bernie, good man. Jake, everybody. Jessica, my goddaughter's here. Hi, John. DVE-TV, all right. Katie. Press conference or whatever you want to make it. This is on Sunday morning. It's one of those political talk shows. I'm your guest, and we're just going to play it that way.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amelia Fredericks.
Hi, Amelia.
Reporting from DVE-TV. Today we have Secretary Tom Ridge with us. Good afternoon, Mr. Ridge. Out of all the things that you've done, like governor and congressman, did you ever think you were going to be one of those things?
It's a wonderful question because when I was a young person growing up, I thought at one time maybe I'd be a baseball player. And then your mind kind of drifts around, maybe I'll be a pilot or maybe I'll be a lawyer, which ultimately I became. But at the end of the day, way back when I was your age, I never thought of public service as a career. I mean, I never thought I'd be elected to Congress, never thought I'd be a district attorney, never thought I'd be certainly governor, and by no means ever really contemplated being in a president's cabinet. The one thing I did person, then you're going to have plenty of those options potentially down the road for you. So you may not know in 4th or 5th or 6th grade how you're going to end up and what profession you're going to have and job you're going to have. But if you take advantage of the education your parents and your teachers will try to provide you, you'll have perhaps a lot of options down the road. So everybody says work hard, play hard, study hard, and you'll get ready.
How did you feel when you got this job?
The president called me after the tragic events of September 11th one night, and we had a discussion about my leaving Pennsylvania as governor and then coming down and working the White House. And I must tell you that I love being the governor. I think being governor of Pennsylvania is probably the best elected job in America. But the president asked me to come down and help him after 9/11 to do another job that was pretty important as well. A whole different set of challenges, entirely different set of responsibilities. And I was honored that he asked me. I knew I had a lot to learn in order to do the job well. And it's like any other job. You ask your teachers, you ask your parents. Every day you get a chance to learn something new. It may be out of the school book, it may be a conversation with a friend, you may pick up a newspaper, you may learn it on television, you may read a book. And so every day you learn a little bit more about what you do, and hopefully that makes you a better person. And in my job, it makes me better at what I'm doing right now as secretary. So I was honored and flattered, and be able to work with my president on behalf of the country. And I like going to work every day. I like going to work every day.
What do you do on a regular day basis as the Secretary of Homeland Security?
No single day is like any other day. There's no routine in my day except the first part of the morning. You're going to love this. My dogs wake me up in the morning. We have 3 Labradors, Allie, Molly, and Gus. Molly and Gus come up and wake me up about 6 o'clock. I don't need to set my alarm clock. I get to the foot of the bed, and Gus is there all laughs, and Gus will clear his throat. He don't bark or go, kind of like that. Like, get out of bed, it's time to feed. Get down and feed the dogs, what I need to do, go to the White House, normally the White House by 7:15, 7:30. I have a briefing from the Central Intelligence Agency. I get a briefing from the Department of Homeland Security, and then we meet with the president. That's pretty regular every day. We meet with the president, the attorney general's there, and the national security advisor's there, vice president's there, and chief of staff is there, and the FBI director's there. We talk about my job, and we talk about threats to the United States. And then every day, everything after that is different. Some days I'm dealing with governors and mayors. Some days I'm traveling around the country. Occasionally I travel in different parts of the world. But really, Homeland Security is about trying to put together an entire country. It's just not about a department. It's not just about an agency. It's just not about the people in the federal government. It's working with the police chiefs, fire chiefs, governors, and mayors, people who own companies and schools, in order to get people to respond to the possibility of an attack. And our first responsibility is to try to prevent one. We also want people to be ready and be informed. And so the first part of the day is very similar. The rest of the day, I'm dealing with people from around the country trying to help me build a system, help me build something in America to help us prevent an attack. And if something happens, we can respond as quickly and as helpfully as we possibly can. The first job we try to do is work on prevention. That's yours. Okay.
I understand that you were a Vietnam veteran, and do you feel that every day you're fighting the same kind of battle as the Homeland Security Secretary, or do you feel it's different now?
Pacific or went to Europe and Korea, they went to Korea. There, the enemy was really a soldier. And unfortunately, historically, countries have fought countries and soldiers have fought soldiers. That's one form of warfare. The kind of the people we're dealing with right now, as we saw on September 11th, didn't aim their weapons, and they turned airplanes into weapons, but weren't really trying to win a traditional war in terms of fighting soldiers. They didn't care if they killed innocent civilians. So it's a different kind of enemy that we have. And we're not fighting a war against a country or countries, and we're not fighting a war against soldiers who will fight soldiers. We're fighting a war against a group of terrorists, extremists, who under the name of a particular religion, and it's they really hijacked religion. Islam, the Islamic religion doesn't say, it doesn't authorize, it doesn't condone the things that they've done. So we're not fighting a country, and we're not fighting soldiers who just want to combat soldiers. We're fighting a group of extremists who don't care who they kill. And so to that extent, it's different. It's every bit as important. I mean, this is a different kind of war, but right now, this is the biggest enemy we have. The other difference is that the rest of the world understands now, after September 11th, that they're targets as well. There have been these same people who believe in the same causes, the same things, have brought the same mentality, the same mindset. They've killed innocent people. They've killed them in Saudi Arabia, they've killed them in Tunisia, they've killed them in Madrid, they've killed them in other places around the world. So the world is engaged in trying to combat our enemy as well. We have literally, in terms of sharing information about these bad people, I mean, we see bad stuff about these people every day, but there are 70 or 80 countries out there that are trying to help us identify who they are so we can capture them so they can't do it again. So it's a different kind of enemy, but it's still very important war.
At which point do you rise the alert from yellow or from orange to red?
You're all going to be getting your driver's license pretty soon, right? Not for a while? Well, my son is going to be 17. And he said, Dad, the law says you could get my driver's license when I was 16. And I said, that might be the law, but Dad said you get it when you get it, right? The reason I use your driver's license, you go to a traffic light and you get 3 colors. Green means you go through it. Yellow, you be real careful going through. You probably better slow down and stop. And red, you got to stop. What the color code system is becoming is 2 things. One, it's a signal to the country that a lot of the president's advisors, not just me, think the possibility of an attack is a little bit greater tomorrow than it is today. But it's also a signal to the police and security people, you got to do certain things. So just like a traffic light tells you to do certain things, the color-coded system tells the police